Hello YouTube! Welcome to the next episode of my road trip photographing the landscapes of the American Southwest. In this episode, we are heading out to the Racetrack, located in central Death Valley National Park in eastern California. The Racetrack is a flat mud playa you may have seen where the rocks move on the surface of the playa, leaving trails behind them in the mud. It is a phenomenon that occurs when water on the surface of the playa freezes into sheets of floating ice. Wind then moves the ice sheets over the playa, dragging the embedded boulders across the mud. It took decades for this phenomenon to be figured out. Getting out to the Racetrack requires driving nearly 30 miles of rough rock and gravel. There's also one short patch of sand near the start, and this sand is pretty deep. A high clearance vehicle with four-wheel drive is necessary, as are all-terrain tires with sturdy tread and sidewalls. This road is known to eat regular highway tires, all-season tires, and all-weather tires. Definitely carry a full-size spare tire. This is not the place for a compact spare tire. It is an 83-mile drive out to the Racetrack from Furnace Creek, which is the closest town with very expensive gas. So make sure you have a full tank before heading out. I arrived with the tank barely more than half full, but luckily it is mostly downhill on the way back out. I have a link down in the video description to the Park Service's advice on driving backcountry roads in Death Valley National Park. One of the things you'll see at Racetrack Playa, as well as out at the other remote sand dunes, are plenty of fighter jets training in the desert. I'm in the southeast corner of the playa. There's where there's the highest concentration of these boulders. There's probably a few dozen of them out here. Most of them have these tracks. Most of the tracks are going east-west or maybe slightly northeast to southwest. So probably a little bit more of a morning shot. The sun's going to rise tomorrow right over the ridge right about there. So they'll probably provide a little bit better light in terms of being the most perpendicular to the track orientation, which will give the best contrast and make the tracks show up best. So I plan to be here at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. But in the meanwhile, I'm going to take a few shots now in this light, just in case things don't work out for tomorrow. So I've chose to work with this boulder this evening. It's kind of out on its own. It's got a nice track behind it, clean background, and the track has a little bit of curvature to it, which is interesting. Some of the tracks are straight, but not as long. Some of them are zigzaggy. This has got a pleasant shape to it, so that's kind of why I picked this one. So I'm set up here and ready to go. I'm just going to wait probably about half an hour for the sun to get a little bit lower in the sky. That'll maximize the texture and maybe increase the warmth a little bit. There's a ridge to the west that'll probably hide the sun about 45 minutes before sunset. So I'm gonna wait for the sun to get pretty close to that ridge. There's probably two more good shots over there that I might try to also get in around the same time. So we'll see if I have time to get more than just this one. Here's my next boulder, a little curvier type of a path to it. I think it's important to look at the shadow of the rock as well. So I think the boulder and its shadow are both key foreground elements. And in this composition I chose to include the mountain with a little bit of sky in the background just to provide a full context of its location. Doing focus stacking, about 6 or 7 shots per composition, just to make sure I've got super sharpness throughout from front to back. So all those tracks you see out there, unfortunately, are not from rocks. Those tracks in the playa here are from some guy that was just out here, some boy that was just out here on a motorized unicycle. So riding around and leaving tracks all over the place. Nice. Good morning, YouTube. I'm back out on Racetrack Playa for sunrise. The sun rose about 15 minutes ago, but it takes about an hour for the sun to clear this ridge over here. I'm hoping the morning light will come in a little bit more perpendicular to the tracks and provide a little more contrast to make the tracks show up better. So that's the plan. The playa mud itself is kind of cool. It has like these cells, each of which is cracked up into much smaller pieces, but each cell has a little bit of a dome to it. The center is maybe 3 millimeters higher than the edges, and then there's several cells in a larger, super cell like this here, and that's just consistent throughout the entire playa. So the sun's going to come over that ridge in my field of view of the camera. So what I'm going to do is a composition where I'm including the ridge line in the composition. I'm going to take a exposure at f16 as soon as the sun begins to appear over the ridge, just a little sliver of the sun, to get a starburst effect. So it'll be at one frame. Then I'm going to wait until the sun illuminates all of the playa in front of me and take a focus stack series with the exposure set for the playa itself. And when I take those exposures, I'm going to use my fingers to block out the sun because the sun will still be in the field of view. And then I'll be able to combine those. So first I'll focus stack the foreground, and then I'll take that first image with the starburst and stack that on top. So it'll be sort of a composition, a two-part composition, one for the foreground and one for the starburst. All right, here comes a sliver of the sun right now. And so I'm going to take that photo. I'm shooting at ISO 100, f16, 1/20th of a second. There we go. It's actually pretty cool because it casts a linear type highlight on the playa leading right to my rock. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to take another one. So that effect improves. That is probably, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and do the whole focus stack right now because this is pretty cool. All right, so here are those exposures. I've already converted them from RAW to TIFF file format. This first exposure here was taken just as the sun was starting to crest over the ridgeline. So just a sliver of the sun is showing. And when you take a photo in this situation with a small aperture like f16 or f22, the aperture blades inside your lens will create this starburst or sunburst effect. So these 6 following exposures were taken a few minutes later and are focused at different points from the extreme foreground to the extreme background. You can see my fingers blocking the sun in the image. By blocking the sun with my fingers, I reduce flare in these images. I will now use Helicon Focus to stack these last 6 images together, combining the sharpest parts of each image to generate a composite image that is fully sharp from foreground to background. I'll just drop these 6 images into Helicon Focus, press the render button, and let the software now combine the sharpest portions of each image into a single focus stacked composite image. There we go. You can see in the little preview window here that the image is sharp from front to back. Now, you notice the image is still showing my fingers here at the top. Don't worry about that. We'll take care of that in the next step. So now we'll go ahead and save that with the name stack. Now we'll go into Photoshop to combine the starburst image with the focus stacked image. First I'll open the focus stacked image, and then I'll drop the starburst image right here on top. Photoshop will stack the starburst image on top as a smart object. So I'm going to select that layer and rasterize it by going to Layer, Rasterize, Layers. Okay, now I'm going to select both layers and go to Edit, Auto Align Layers. This will automatically align the two layers, just in case they were a bit off from each other. Okay, now let's take that starburst image and add a layer mask. Okay, now with that mask selected, I'm going to select a fairly large brush and paint black over the lower portion of the layer mask. This will make this lower portion of the starburst layer transparent, so the focus stack image can now be seen. So there you have it. We have the starburst image along the top and the focus stacked image along the bottom, and everything is sharp from front to back, and there's no fingers at the top. And we've minimized flare caused by the starburst in the first image. I like how that has turned out so far, so now I can make my final edits, like removing sensor dust, making some minor tweaks here and there, and getting the horizon level. And there it is, the final image. Thanks for joining me out on the racetrack. Be sure to watch the next episode in my series on photographing the landscapes of the American Southwest. That episode will be out at Devil's Golf Course in Central Death Valley National Park, and I hope you will join me.